Okay, so to explain the borders you showed me, I have this ready. So the regular V neckline, shoulder slanted, armhole marked, bust to waist drafted on paper. Now what's going to be different about this is that for the waist, you're going to add your dart allowance. Now your dart allowance won't be the regular 1 inch, the default 1 inch that most people take. No, you're going to actually calculate the difference between the person's bust circle and under bust circle. So bust circle minus under bust circle, whatever you get, that's going to be the size of your waist dart for this particular pattern. Correction: bust circle minus under bust circle divided by 2. So to decide on where that starts, divide your waist circle by 8. Whatever you get is where your waist dart is going to start. And then, like I said, bust circle minus under bust circle divided by 2 is what will determine your dart size. Now you get this and find your center. This center now is going to be raised up just perpendicular to this line. Just go straight up like this. Now you take your tape and you measure from the highest point of your shoulder to your under bust on your client. You should already have that measurement, but that's the measurement you're going to use here. So at that point, that is where this dart stops being a straight line. So you extend these lines straight to that point. Can you see it? Next, from the highest point of your shoulder, you measure from there to the peak of the bust. That's your bust height. So at that point, and that is where your dart line is going to meet. As you can see, this is not a regular dart. This one is designed to have a nice fit under the bust. So this is what your dart should look like. Now, once you have this down, like I said, whatever you're taking out here, that's your waist dart, remember to add it back to here. So you're adding it to the waist. Whatever your waist circle measurement is, waist circle minus divided by 4. You add this, let's say it's 2 inches, you add 2 inches to it. Then you still have your regular sewing allowance. So that's what's going to be here. Now that you have this, if you look at the picture, you see that, if you look, I have to go back to look at the picture. If you look at the picture, you see that there is a curve running like this. Towards the bust. So you are going to do the same thing. Now, having done that, we are going to separate it and do something else. It's something more we will need to do. But for now, I'm going to separate this button from the top. What I did here is just a replica of what is in the picture. You can make yours meet, but I just stopped it partway. Now I'm going to cut this out. I'm separating this. I'm also going to separate this one. So I'm taking this out now so that we can focus on this. So let's keep this separate and face this one first. Now you will notice that there is a line running. Let me just mark it freehand. Running from here to the neckline, parallel to the neckline. If you are not comfortable with doing a curved V, you can do a straight V. That will be much easier to work with. But this is basically what we have. And if you look closely at that picture, there is no visible dart sewing. None at all. So what we're going to do here now, I'm going to connect this to this. I'm going to connect the bust point to our curve, and we are going to cut it. First, I'm going to cut this through. Done. And we are keeping this separate. Now with this one, I am going to cut this. Before I cut, you notice that the dart leg is different. I'm going to extend this leg so that it is the same length. Use your tape to confirm. You measure this, whatever you have there, that's what you measure here. And then connect this line back. While connecting this line, make sure that the distance here, is it visible? Okay. Make sure the distance here is equal to the new distance. So this is now your new pattern. I want to transfer out the measurements of this point. I'm going to mark. All I'm doing is transfer the measurements. I'm taking this out now. The reason why this was done is so that we can make the dart legs equal. As you can see, they are now equal. That's the reason why that was done. So I'm taking this away. This is what we're working with now. Let me cut this out and then I'll be back. Okay, cut it out. Now, a quick reminder of what everything is. This is the one we cut out from here, and this is the one we cut out from here. Well, our focus now is on this one, so I'm moving them out of the way. Now, remember I joined the line from here to this point we cut out. Run the line. Now, what you're going to do now is cut through that line. And join this. I'm going to tape this together now. Okay, so tape together, this is what we now have. Now you're going to take this pattern and transfer to another pattern paper. On that pattern paper, we still have this length. But now we are going to connect this together. I'm tracing everything. You notice how I connected them? Now, just to be sure we are on track and everything meets, I am going to take what we cut out before. And I am going to place it, line it up with what we had. And then I'll mark. I'm doing this to ensure that when you are joining this one back to this one, they are on the same point. Do you understand? When you join them back, they are correct, they are on the same point. That's the reason why I'm doing this. Now, what you do is measure from that point you marked. Measure. What do you have? Whatever you have, that's what you're going to add to this pattern when you are cutting it. as it stands now, we are done with this one. So all we need to do is cut this out, take this away and cut this out. Another thing that is important to mark before I forget is where the original dart was. So notice two places we took note of now. Where the original dart was, that's the dart we had here, and where this one meets, that is the point at which we cut to the bust dart. Can you see it? That point that we cut to the bust dart, it's also important. So we're going to smoothen this out. And now your pattern is ready. This pattern. I'm going to cut this out off camera just to save time and space. So you cut it out and this is what you get. Not to forget, these are the patterns we are working with. But as it stands now, this pattern is ready. So we are going to keep this separate. For this one, remember what I said about the extension. Look at it. The length from here to here is no longer equal because of that manipulation we did. So you are going to extend this on another paper so that the length matches up with this one. I'm going to do that here. Mark. I'm tracing out what we originally had. And this is where it stops. Trace this out. And this is where this stopped. But now we are going to extend this so that it can meet the length. And what I measured there was 1 inch, but we all know that 1 inch is not going to, it's not going to be realistic on an actual size person. This is just a sample. So you take your own measurements, and then whatever you have, this is what I'm talking about. Whatever you have here, make sure that it's equal to what you have here, which is what we're doing now. So I'm adding that up here. So that now, nothing changes up here, nothing at all. You mark this, and then now this one will connect to your new length. So if I take this out, this is what you now have for that point, and this is where you would draw your gathers. Draw your gathers here. After drawing your gathers, take your fabric for drawing your gathers here, and after drawing your gathers, that's when you will now sew this together. You're going to go like this. And then you sew it together. Now let me cut this out so that we can have a better view of what it's like. As you can see, this is what we now have. So if you want to sew this together now, make sure that you sew from here to meet the notching. This is what you're cutting on your fabric. This is what you're cutting on your fabric. So you make sure that when you're sewing them together, they meet here. And then you sew until they meet like this. That is after you have sewn your gathers on this side of the fabric. Next, we're working on this one. So let me take them out for now. Now for this one, if you look at that picture, I don't know if it's the camera quality or the picture quality, but I don't see any dark line here. So I'm going to cut this out. Cut this out. And we're going to put them together. With tape. Hold on, let me tape it. Now if you watch that manipulation videos, you will notice that this happens a lot. You tape that together. The whole point of taping them together is like pretending that you've sewn the dart and then seeing the impact it will have on the line you've opened, so that everything you do brings out the bust the way you want it to, or gives you the fit you want from the dress if the dart was there traditionally. So I have put this together now, and we are going to create another pattern with this, a final pattern. So you take this, and now you will notice that there is a difference between here and here. That's because when we're curving it, one went right at the end of the end of the dart at this point, and then the other entered into the slant of the dart. So there is a difference in the length. Now how do you rectify that difference? You measure, take a measurement from here to here, take note of what is here, take note of what is here as well. So now you are going to extend this one to meet with this in a curve that mimics the exact curve you have here. Your job now is to make sure that the length you have here from here to here is equal to from here to here. So if this happens to be longer, you're going to reduce it from here and slant it down here. That's, you will now have something like this. Let me take it up. You slant it towards the waistline. And if it turns out to be smaller, rather, if this line now is smaller than this one, it means you're going to extend it. The whole point now is to make sure that this new line is the same length as this one, but you're going to cut everything together as one point, as one line, rather, a straight line, not this. So a straight line from here, not really a straight line, sorry, a curved line from here to that point where it's continuous. It's not, it didn't break. There's no break in the line. And then make sure you notch this point. So I'm going to continue it now. There, tracing this out too. Stop moving. And tracing this out. So now for this one, I'm just assuming that they are both equal. This and this are equal. But if they are not, like I said, what you do now is to reduce. Measure what you have here. Measure. In fact, let's see. Are they equal? Let's do a live sample now. Okay, there's a slight difference. So that means I'm going to cut from here towards here. Bottom. So that's the new pattern for the bottom. These markings are very important. When you are cutting on your fabric, you should notch. I'm going to notch it so you see what I mean by notching, but you should notch it. When you are transferring this to your fabric, because as it stands now, we are done. We have our 3 patterns ready. This is what I mean by notching. Just a very small nick on that line. Just a small line, can you see? Just very small. That's what you do on the fabric when you are transferring it. So at this point now we're done. This was where we started. And this is what we now have. These are our 3 patterns. Now when you're transferring it to your fabric, when you're transferring this one, remember to add your sewing allowance. If you're going to sew with quarter, add a quarter to the top. If you're going to sew with half, add a half to the top. Same thing with this one. To the bottom here, you're adding your half or quarter. To this corner, you're adding your half or quarter, whichever you prefer to sew with. To this end, you're adding your half or quarter. And to this end, you're adding your half or quarter. That's when you're placing it on your fabric to cut. Like I said, remember to notch all these lines. Notch this line, notch this line, notch this, notch this, notch this, notch this, so that you're 100% sure that you are getting all the lines to meet. Now let me identify the places that are going to be folded. For this one, when you're cutting on the fabric, this place should be on fold. For this one, when you're cutting the fabric, this place should be on fold. And for this one, you're just cutting 2 of it. 2 times 2. Cut 2 of it. This part unfold. This area, this line from here to here, fabric should be unfold there. Now for the picture you sent, the V went all the way to practically under the bust. So if you're going to do yours and the client is okay with that, then we are not going to need this part that is unfold. It means that this is going to go all the way here. Okay, another very important thing, remember we used this to cut this one. We extended this line, remember. Now when we extended this line, stay now. When we extended this line, this line became longer. Let me show you what I mean. You know, after extending this, we now joined here to here. So you have to check to see that they are equal. If they are not equal, can you see? They are not equal. So if you work with this now, it's not going to meet when you sew it. It's going to be too long. So we are going to reduce it now so that we can have the exact length. Just hold on, I'll show you what to do. So this is where the other one stopped, the original one stopped before we extended. So it has to be the same length. Now what we're going to do now, you're going to take this line and extend it this way. You will still have this same length. You still have the length you need. The length you need here. But now we're going to extend it this way. See? I'm going to cut this out now. I've cut it out. So when you eventually sew this together, and run it to meet, and you're done.